so popular at the height of Japan's RPG boom, there had to be plenty of games for it, right? Well, it was a hugely popular anime in the 90s, so of course there was. Several, in fact. But only a handful have made it to our shores, and none of them are quite what you would expect for a Lodos game. Let's take a closer look, starting with the one you're most likely to be familiar with, the Record of Lodos War, Deedlit, and Wonder Labyrinth. Released in 2021 in celebration of the Record of Lodos War's 35th anniversary, Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth had been released on Steam after a year of early access. The game was brought to us by the same team that developed Touhou Luna Nights, Playism, Team Ladybug, and Why So Serious Games. Which is why it's also not so surprising that this isn't your traditional RPG, but instead is a Metroidvania title. Though, to call it a Metroidvania is a bit of a misnomer. Don't get me wrong, it checks all the boxes that make it part of the genre. Experience points, weapons, and traversal upgrades, secret areas, and enemies based on monsters, which is based on D&D, which is based off popular mythology, which Castlevania borrowed from. It feels like Symphony of Night, sounds like Symphony, and it looks like Symphony. And I mean it looks a lot like Symphony. It doesn't play a lot like Symphony of the Night, however. Wonder Labyrinth is surprisingly linear, with no real incentive to backtrack. There isn't a whole lot of opportunities to make use of the upgrades you previously lacked, no real opportunities to explore to find secrets you might have missed. Even the item shop, which is often found in a central location in your typical Metroidvania, makes an appearance in each stage, which, while convenient, undermines the typical world-building aspect that is often a strength of the genre. The game itself, though, is a great experience. The pixel art is absolutely stunning, highly detailed and fluid animation with great set pieces. Gameplay-wise, it's pretty solid as well, predominantly featuring two mechanics that stand out. One is using your bow to solve puzzles by ricocheting shots to hit targets and switches. The other is an Ikaruga-style element mode. Whichever spirit you manifest, wind or fire, will absorb and imbue your attacks with that element. It was great when Outlands did it, so it's a pretty welcome addition here as well. The boss battles are particularly worth highlighting. They aren't anything that deviates from your traditional pattern recognition, but they're often fast, enemies have you constantly switching between your elements, and the fact that you have both a melee and ranged attack means you're able to apply constant pressure to the enemy. It's not particularly challenging, but it is entirely satisfying. But how is Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth as a Record of Lodos game? I mean, the story page itself states that the story fills in the events leading up to the latest entry of the Record of Lodos series. I mean, it is based on the Record of Lodos.
Oh, fuck.
Deedlit wakes up in a Wonder Labyrinth. I mean, it's right there in the title. And as you make your way through the game, you encounter familiar faces such as Har, Nito, Slane, Woodchuck, Gimp, even Ashram, Beld, Shooting Star, King Cashew, and even Deedlit's rival, the Dark Elf Puritas. If you have no context for any of the names I just said, unfortunately the game isn't going to provide you with any either. The narrative never goes into any detail about the characters' backstories or importance. It doesn't explain any of the lore or history leading up to the events of the game. It simply drops you in and expects you to know who these characters are. But okay, maybe expectations of that are a little too unrealistic. It's effectively a budget release, and maybe it didn't want to slow the game down with a ton of exposition to fans who already knew the characters and the story. Obviously, this is for fans of the series, looking to fill in the 100-year gap between Chronicles of the Heroic Knight and The Crown of the Covenant. Well, no. Unfortunately, the dialogue between the characters themselves is incredibly stilted and cryptic, showing none of the characters' personalities, if not outright betraying the character itself. It outright breaks canon by incorporating characters that shouldn't be alive. It has characters that Deedlit didn't know or even exist in Deedlit's time. Yet the story is so self-contained it effectively doesn't explain anything between the novels. The narrative designer in me is wondering exactly who the target audience for this game was. It's not a good entry for newcomers wanting to get into the series. Fans of Metroidvania will likely be turned off by the lack of exploration, both in the world and its mechanics. And fans of the series are likely to be turned away by the story and portrayal of the characters themselves. I mean, It's not like they didn't do the work. The character designs are incredibly well done. And they really went out of the way to be sure to include every main character from the original series, even if their unexplained inclusion is a detriment to the story. It just doesn't make any sense. Why go through all the trouble to bring these characters in and just... Oh, fan service. Okay, fair enough. That's not to say that fan service is inherently bad. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw the Demon Lord in class, I popped. Oh, finally. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Holy shit, is that Floss? Oh my god. Oh. The Lady of Ferris is absolutely one of my favorite stories in the entirety of Lodos. If you haven't read it yet, you absolutely should. It's a prequel that goes into the events of the Demon War, where you see a young Veld, Fawn, and Wart. It's drawn by Akihiro Yamada, who did the character design for Front Mission 3. It's brutal and bloody, featuring a simple story with strong characters. It's part of the Lodos series that deserves so much more attention than it received. Seeing these two characters represented in beautiful pixel art was easily the highlight of the game for me, but it also felt incredibly shallow. Their inclusion didn't really enhance the narrative and arguably it detracted from it. And the same could be said about the entire game. It showcases all these characters but doesn't do anything with them. Vinland Wonder Labyrinth is the Lodos as Luna Nights was to Touhou. It's an all-around solidly designed game with excellent pixel art and a story that only really exists as an excuse rather than a reason. But whereas Luna Nights is built in a constantly fluid and expanding universe of Touhou, one where stories and characters' personalities are often told through the gameplay, the same design philosophy doesn't quite work in the narrative-heavy structure of Lodos. Sadly, this is not likely to improve with time either. While Luna Nights continued to receive support for well over 2 years, it seems like Wonder Labyrinth was more of a one-and-done affair, getting its final update on July 13, 2021. It's not surprising considering the developers themselves were approached to create a game instead of being a passionate fan project like Luna Nights. And it's a budget title, so things over 2 years, it seems like Wonder Labyrinth was more of a one-and-done affair, getting its final update on July 13, 2021. It's not surprising considering the developers themselves were approached to create a game instead of being a passionate fan project like Luna Nights. And it's a budget title, so things could have been much worse. It's a great game that's simultaneously a disappointing one, especially for Lodos fans, since this was the first game to hit our shores in nearly 20 years. But wait a minute, that also means it wasn't the only Lodos game to be released. And perhaps a good Lodos game doesn't have to be just a dream. Record of Lodos War released on the Dreamcast in North America in March of 2001. Developed by Neverland Company, who at the time was best known for Lufia and later Rune Factory, Record of Lodos War was the first time a Lodos game had been released in the West. Also defying expectations, this isn't a traditional JRPG either, but instead is an isometric hack-and-slash game. It feels like Diablo, it plays like Diablo, console anyway, and it looks like Diablo. And I mean, it really looks a lot like Diablo. You play as a hulking warrior fighting goblins, undead, and demons. You have an old lady quest while gathering all the potions as you travel a gothic-inspired perpetual hellscape on
just
the
me, I
quest to
think.
attack and if you're thinking this is just a cheap knockoff of Diablo, well, not gonna lie, it definitely copied Diablo's homework. It's not an exact clone of Diablo, however. It does do a few things differently to distance itself from the Satan Slayer. One thing to note in particular is that this game released in Japan in June of 2000, which happened to be the same release date of Diablo 2 in North America, meaning these games were likely developed around the same time, and therefore Record of Lodos doesn't feature any of the innovations that Diablo 2 brought to the genre. You're not going to see any skill trees here, nor is the focus on loot like it was in Phantasy Star Online. Actually, there's no multiplayer at all, not using either the Dreamcast's online capabilities or local. It's an entirely single-player experience, which admittedly undermines the particular strengths of that genre. But in spite of itself, it does attempt to improve on the genre in its own ways. To start, it has a slightly adjustable camera. Okay, well, this actually doesn't do anything. You don't have full control of the camera, nor do you really need it. It was more likely bait for a bullet point on the back of the box. Basically, as a way of saying, this isn't your granddad's Diablo. A more substantial change is that you move fast, which is good because the focus isn't so much on navigating through dungeons as you are exploring a mostly open land. This additional speed also allows you to handle all the enemies the game likes to throw at you. With the final stages often spawning dozens of enemies on top of you at once, it's pretty easy to be overwhelmed. Without the focus on your gear, progression is handled entirely differently. Leveling only increases your hit points, and even then it's not by any useful amount. Instead, the focus is on increasing your stats of your gear via the game's rune system. Throughout the game, you find various runes that can increase anything from your HP and MP, strength, intelligence, your critical hit rate, multiplier, defense, regeneration speed, and the amount of damage you do to certain enemies. Once you find these runes, you can inscribe them to your weapons and armor multiple times as long as you can afford the cost. Even if you happen to find a new weapon or armor, you can reforge your old set into the new one, gaining all the attributes of that equipment while keeping your stat improvements. There are even a few special runes that you can't inscribe, but you can set it into your gear, and they often have powerful effects, such as creating a dome that heals you and harms your enemies, or killing certain enemy types in one strike. At a certain point, you find yourself doing Disgaea levels of damage, and it's more or less required. In fact, the manual itself says if you're not killing enemies in 1 or 2 hits, it's time for an upgrade. The game also features an assortment of very useful spells, ranging from creating a circle of flame to a gust that knocks down all enemies, creating a wall of stone, freezing enemies, reanimating dead, and the ever useful instant recall spell. It's actually kind of easy to forget that you have them because you can only really have one set at a time. In order to change your spells, you have to hold down the spell use button, wait until the menu pops open, enter a certain combination for the spell you want, and the entire time you can't move or attack or it closes the menu. It's not the design decision I would have went with. I probably would have gone without the luxuries of a movable camera for more spell slots, but really you only need one spell to take advantage of the somewhat simple AI. Speaking of simple AI, on occasion you do get AI partners to help you on your journey, consisting of characters from the Lodos series, though they only stick around for certain sections. An interesting thing to point out is that when these characters die, they are dead for good, and it's often easy for them to get overwhelmed. So more often than not, you have to keep an eye on their health and make sure they don't get surrounded. But they aren't exactly a detriment either. You don't automatically game over if they perish, and having an extra body around makes fighting the hordes of enemies a bit more manageable. Overall, in terms of gameplay, The Record of Lodoss War isn't a bad game. It has some questionable design choices, but for the most part it's solidly built and has some decent takes on the traditional Diablo formula. But how is it as a Lodoss game? At this point you're probably expecting some cheap license title that was really only using the Lodoss name for the characters, but surprisingly no. The game was published by Kadokawa Shoten, the company that owns the Lodoss license, and the story was written by Ryo Mizuno himself. The game features an original story taking place on the Isle of Marmo, which is like a even more accursed isle within the accursed isle. Doesn't really have anything to do with the main Lodoss series. This was less confusing in Japan because over there the game received the subtitle of Advent of Cardus, which you can briefly see in this poorly cut opening FMV. You play as a long-deceased hero who had been recently resurrected by the Great Sage Court in order to stop the return of the goddess of destruction, Cardus. As a side effect of your resurrection, your character has no memories and he doesn't really seem too happy about that. You're told that in order to stop Cardus, you'll need to find several people scattered on the island of Marmo, including Slain, Layla, Deedlit, and Paul. Oh my god. Oh no! Darn, oh my god. The early 2000s CGI was not good to you. The narrative itself isn't exactly a masterpiece. The Amnesiac storyline is only really there for plot convenience. They try to build it up as a big mystery and reveal, but if you're familiar with Lodos at all outside of the OVA, then it's pretty obvious by the cover art who you're playing as. And if you aren't familiar with the lore, then the reveal doesn't really mean that much anyway. The plot itself is incredibly straightforward with little in the way of meaningful twists and turns. Even the presence of characters like Deedlit or Pyridus don't really add to it. It's kind of funny because for the most part, they more or less bail at you when you tell them you're going to fight the goddess of destruction. The great hero of Lodos like, oh, you're fighting a goddess? Well, good luck with that. And like Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth, the story itself is entirely self-contained. This time treated more as a lost to history legend. And as you can expect with early CGI and voice acting, the delivery isn't all that great either. But there is actually a lot of good to be found here. Let's face it, Lodos isn't a series you get into because you're expecting a deep story rich with meaning and symbolism. That's never really been the series' strength. It's more about the setting itself and the strong personalities acting within that, and all of that is mostly faithfully represented here. And there are some legitimate moments of good narrative design. A brief example of a building character moment, early in the game you are told your mission is to assassinate a goblin leader, with no apparent motive or reason. Then the game gives you the option to question the morality of that. When you do, word comments that that's actually out of character for you since your character would have no problem killing goblins just for the sake of killing goblins. Not only does this give you a solid hint of personality, but it also tells you, hey, don't worry about it, just be a jerk. Which actually does help you at some points in the game, though not so much in others. Overall, Advent of Cardis really has no right to be as good as it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is dated. It is definitely an early 2000s game. It was made for a post-grunge nihilistic era with a humor to match. It was so preoccupied with the fact that it could have voice actors and CGI that it never stopped to think it should. And there are several issues with the gameplay and the narrative. But for what it is, the game itself is surprisingly enjoyable, and it does a lot of things well enough that it aged better than what you would expect it to. Especially considering if you're a Lodos fan. Whereas Deedlit Wonder Labyrinth is a fan service in a very, hey, look, it's Carla. Remember her? She certainly was in Record of Lodos War. Here she's entirely intact in terms of her character's personality, motivation, and reasonings. Even the self-contained narrative, which is just as present in Wonder Labyrinth, feels far more impactful because of the respect and care it gives to the setting and lore. To the extent that it almost feels canonical. Well, except maybe the part where Deedlit died in my playthrough.
Damn.
If you're not a fan though, unfortunately Advent of
Purple
Cardis
text,
doesn't really have
ooh.
much to offer. It does a better job at presenting the characters, setting, and lore, but it doesn't really go into detail about who they are and why they're important. The delivery and the poor localization doesn't really do it much favors either.
Return to life. I am your friend.
The narrative itself is simple enough that you don't really need that to enjoy the experience, but you're definitely missing things without it, and you're likely not going to leave with anything you can take with you into the series. Even to a casual Lodos fan, there are still things you're likely to miss out on since the game makes assumptions about your knowledge. Though it's not required by any means, if you're interested in playing through the Dreamcast title, or if you're just a fan of the series at all, I highly recommend checking out The Lady Affairs. Not only does it tie into the game, but it's probably the strongest narrative in the series. Seriously, check it out, preferably from your local internet library. Where was I? Oh, yeah. The Record of Lodos War, Advent of Cardis, ended up being reviewed fairly favorably, though it's pretty obvious by its obscurity that it didn't sell all that well, and it released the same month when Sega announced that they were discontinuing the Dreamcast. Neverland Company stuck around for a little longer though, going on to develop Shining Force Neo and Shining Force Exa, which are essentially spiritual successors to Advent of Cardis in gameplay. Neverland unfortunately never found much in terms of success with either titles and eventually closed down in 2013. That was pretty much it as far as Lodos in the West. Advent Tardis and Deedland Wonder Labyrinth were the only two titles that had a localized release. And if you're thinking that there is one other title, you're probably thinking of the Record of Agarest War, and no, that's its entirely own thing. Trust me, it confused me as well, considering that the main continent of Lodos is called Alacrest. But no, there were no other Lodos games released in America. Well, okay, there was one more, but I'm not really sure it counts. In 2017, there was another game that received an English translation titled Record of Lodos Online, which, as you can probably guess, was an MMO based in the Lodos world. Released by LNK, a Korean developer who at the time was only known for one other game.
Isn't that crazy flirty?
Which Lodos Online seemed to pull
Like,
rather
fuck.
heavily from.
Why'd I
Much
pull
like
all
Redstone,
those boars
much like
again?
Redstone, it played a lot like Redstone. That is to say, it's sort of what you expected if you were familiar at all with the family of free-to-play Korean MMORPGs. It featured simple point-and-click browser mechanics with a ton of grind, a huge amount of various experience points and currencies to customize your character. Those sprite-locked characters meant that actual character customization was lacking. There were plenty of quests, events, and things to spend premium currency on. If you noticed I'm sticking with past tense here, it's because the game isn't technically playable. It still exists from what I can tell, but in October of 2019, the game removed its English support. Considering its sale page had such publisher picked reviews boldly claiming that it was a bit repetitive, it wasn't a very huge success over here. According to the Steam
I've actually been enjoying like games other than leveling, but tonight I'm grinding almost 29.
A laughably bad localization effort, heavy pay-to-win mechanics, and a registration system that apparently put play online to shame. But it looked nice, had decent music, and from what I read in the comments that there were some quality experiences that you could find if you stuck it out. But overall, nothing that made it worth investing your time into. So, how was it as a Lodos game? Well, I'm sure if you're willing to explore Lodos for yourself, it was likely one of the best ways to do so. The whole island was open for you to explore if you wanted to kill bats and boars, and it does feature characters from the original story. It's unlikely you would accompany the classic party on their journey through each step, and even if you did, it's unlikely the experience had survived a terrible localization, but it was there, so you can at least say it was a Lodos game. But if you're a fan of the Lodos series and you missed out on the opportunity to play it due to its silent release, and you're lamenting all the experiences and memories you could never have, don't worry. With the wonders of technology, I can give you the exact emotional range you would have while playing it. Ready? I mean, I don't think you are, but might as well get this over with. Here you go. Yeah, that feeling, however it is you're going through right now, is probably the exact same feeling you would have playing the game. It's disappointing. Maybe there was a good Lodos story in there somewhere, but it's one that at this point is inaccessible to Western audiences. Instead of taking the time to learn Korean in order to navigate a painful sign-up process, your time would probably be better spent tracking down a copy of The Lady of Faris and reading that. Even if you don't know anything about Lodos at all, it comes highly recommended. If you're just interested in fantasy in general, it's a group adventure set in a fighting against people, winning fights and even more. Where he's actually gonna do it, but Floss like, nah, if he was serious, he would have done it already. There's just so much personality and charm. Okay, wait, where was I again? Anyway, that was, for real this time, it as far as Western releases for Lodos games are concerned. It's strange that among these three, there hasn't been a single one that explored the events of the series, each instead opting for original narratives, which is fine and all, but these titles were almost impenetrable for those who were looking to get into the series. It's not like those games didn't exist though. In Japan, they had games as early as 1988 for the MSX. The PC Engine had a few turn-based strategy games, and there was even some for the Sega CD. Are these games any good? Well, my knowledge of Japanese is tenuous at best, but just to see what we missed out on, we'll take a look at one more game. Lotus Tausenki, or simply The Record of Lodoss War, was released in 1995 for the Super Famicom and would be the last game based around the original series. It was developed by a company named Thinking Rabbit. If you know it all, it's likely due to them being the original publishers of Sokoban. And I'm happy to say that this game looks nothing like Sokoban, feels nothing like Sokoban, it only plays very, very loosely like Sokoban. Believe it or not, this is a traditional Japanese role-playing game, almost to a fault. It doesn't really do a whole lot to set itself apart from the flood of other RPG titles that were available around the time, and what is on offer is, I hate to bury the lead here, but it's not great. The sprite art for the lead characters is pretty good, and the opening leaves a great first impression. Unfortunately, after that, it quickly loses momentum. An hour in, you're met with generic tile sets and heavily reused sprites, and you're not going to find any chiptune renditions of the OVA's amazing orchestral soundtrack, instead making the bold decision to focus on forgettable and repetitive loops with no melody to speak of. Understandable if this was an early Super Famicom title, but this was released in 1995, near the end of the console's lifespan. It's not all bad. The Record of Lodoss War is a strategy RPG that has fights on a 5x3 grid, and it contains a few interesting twists. The first of which being that each encounter with enemies has one designated as the leader, who is revealed after they're attacked. If you defeat the leader, then all other enemy units run away. Even more interesting is that if you deal enough damage to an enemy, they are pushed back. And if you happen to push the enemy leader off the board, you get what's called a checkmate. As I said, it's only a little like Sokoban. A checkmate automatically defeats the leader regardless of how much health they had remaining, and on top of that, you get double the experience points and a significantly increased drop rate. There was a lot of innovative thought put into this system. Unfortunately, this innovation doesn't really save the gameplay. Enemies are not very interesting, and despite being a strategy game, often doesn't lead to very strategic encounters. Enemies don't really do anything other than advance on you and cycle through their attacks. The dominant strategy ends up being using the priest AoE ability to highlight the leader, then focusing fire to win the fight as quickly as possible, only to take a few steps and have to do it all over again. The encounter rate is so incredibly dense and the combat is so slow that after a while you're likely to start fleeing pretty much every encounter. And even then it feels like a slog. There isn't much variance on abilities or spells to make it really interesting. I couldn't tell if buffs were doing anything or not. Woodchuck, or Woody as the game calls him, ends up being so overpowered because he can take 2 actions in 1 turn. Summons, on the other hand, are practically useless. And dungeons are interesting with its isometric perspective, but doesn't really control that well, and the maze-like designs only exacerbates the high encounter rate. Also, for some reason, traps that send you back to the very beginning of the dungeon. Overall, there's some pretty decent ideas, but just terrible implementation. That's not to say The Record of Lodoss is a terrible game. Mechanically, it's playable, if not heavily flawed, but as a Lodoss game, at least in terms of the narrative, it's arguably the best one. The main story is nearly a beat-for-beat recreation of the Grey Witch Saga. Everything from the initial goblin attack to Forest of No Return, King Fawn's party, it hits all the key points and then some. There was some artistic license to have it make sense as a game and be able to connect it to other scenes, but overall it's there. You get the full Lodoss experience, and I do mean all of it. The opening cinematic and prologue doesn't start with Karn's story, but rather it opens up at the final battle of the Demon War, and you see Fawn, Feld, Wart, Cleve, Nis, Klaus, and the Unknown Soldier as they save Lodoss from destruction, which means Technically, this game starts at the end of The Lady of Ferris, which, by the way, you should really read because it covers all these characters in far more detail. And speaking of detail, the art is so incredibly well done that it really captures that dark fantasy aesthetic, and the combat scenes are so badass. It's dark and gory and metal as Fawn, Beld, and even Carla get a lot more screen time as well. It doesn't just jump straight into Parn's journey. The majority of the game focuses on filling the gaps between the end of the Demon War and the War of Heroes. It shows how Beld came into power and became the Emperor of Marmo, how Fawn became the King of his realm, and what happened to Carla in the 30 years between the two wars. Carla's chapter, by the way, has a surprisingly great narrative design mechanic, granting her the powers of her host and effective immortality. Basically, she's Captain Ginyu. You're welcome for that image, by the way. The game explores this concept as there are parts where you get murdered by NPCs in order to gain their bodies, enabling you to use their abilities, magic, gain their levels, and getting you access to areas you otherwise couldn't. At a certain point, you're eventually given the ability to effectively choose your class by getting murdered. I don't know, this could be just me, but I thought this was incredibly smart, and I love the fact that this implies that Lodos is inhabited by murder hobos. Really captures that classic role-playing experience. It's a shame that the other two additional chapters, Beld and Fawn's, aren't nearly as robust. Beld's story has a mechanic where his health is constantly drained by his cursed sword, and you simply can't heal by resting. In order to regain his health, you need to constantly defeat enemies. It's an interesting concept, almost like a crazy taxi RPG, and being fully healed after battle is pretty neat. But it really doesn't amount to anything, there's no real tension, and it means you're otherwise forced to fight encounters you wish you could just run away from. Meanwhile, Fawn doesn't really have any unique mechanic or really a particularly interesting story. The most notable thing is that you see Parn's dad, and in a good bit of narrative symmetry, you see Parn's rival, Ashram's dad, in Beld's chapter, though it really doesn't do much other than just have a cameo appearance. Overall, these chapters are a nice bonus for longtime fans looking to explore the lost history of Lodos. It really does drive home the importance of these characters going against each other in a final chapter, something that arguably the anime didn't even accomplish all that well. Overall, Thinking Rabbit's Record of Lodos War ends up being the strongest entry by far if you were wanting to experience the story for yourself, and the additional story is enough to keep the interest of longtime fans. Not only that, it is incredibly respectful to the source material. It genuinely feels like the Thinking Rabbit devs were fans of the series, and that shows, likely aided by the wonderful translation by Dynamic Designs. Between them and the developers, it doesn't feel like the Super Famicom port was meant to simply be fan service, but rather a service to the fans. It's just a shame that on the gameplay side it ends up being the weakest. I couldn't find anything regarding the development history of the game, so I don't really know the details. What follows from here on out is mainly conjecture. I'm pretty sure this isn't so much a case of it being just a fundamentally bad game as much as it is a rushed and unpolished one. Thinking Rabbit wasn't a big developer by any means, only releasing a handful of games prior and only one game after this. It was likely the company was in its death throes. It's likely they didn't have the time, budget, or team to make it a polished title. But the thought, intention, and talent was definitely there. Thinking Rabbit ultimately did the best they could with what they had. And by that measure, the Record of Lodos War ends up being a respectable, if heavily flawed entry. It's unlikely that even if the title was successful, it would have received an official localization. While Lodos is a cultural mainstay in Japan, its characters instantly recognizable, and its story is considered a classic, a lot of that popularity had more to do with timing. As mentioned before, the series became big around the same time that RPGs were becoming immensely popular in Japan. And with Lodos being every bit as prolific as Dragon Quest, it was able to ride that wave of popularity, but that wave broke well before it reached our shores. It's also important to note that when RPGs had started to see success in the West, it wasn't your traditional fantasy settings. Final Fantasy VII's popularity was in part due to the fact that it was different than what we experienced before. We had been flooded with Tolkien-esque fantasy tropes in our media for decades prior, and outside of the art style, there really wasn't much separating Lodos from cartoons like the Pirates of Darkwater. which is also good, and you should check that out if you never have. The producers of Lodos, likely correctly, assumed there wasn't much point in trying to make Lodos work for American audiences. By the time RPGs became commercially viable in the West, while the record of Lodos was still a cultural icon, it wasn't so much a relevant one. The following year saw the release of another animated series, the sequel effectively, Chronicles of the Heroic Knight, which was neither as successful or fondly remembered as the original. Eventually, Ryo Mizuno quit writing directly for Lodos and started moving to spin-offs, then to settings just based in the same world, to eventually leaving Heracross altogether and instead focusing on the record of Grand Crest for the past decade, which unfortunately was a shame because despite its lack of popularity, there is genuinely a lot to like about the record of Lodos War. You would think that being the trope codifier for nearly every fantasy-based narrative device, Lodos would have aged poorly. I mean, Gim being an axe-swinging, ale-drinking, perpetually grumpy dwarf arguing against the aloof elf Deedlit, or Parn being the son of an adventurer following in his missing father's footsteps after getting kicked out of the town for successfully saving the village. These are tropes that have been iterated on since the origin of RPGs. But that's what makes Lodos special, because it wasn't trying to iterate. Lodos was effectively telling the story with the narrative tools provided to it by an archaic rule set that really didn't allow for much creativity, instead focusing on making the best narrative it could within that rule set. Lodos, by the very nature of its original medium, had encapsulated the essence of everyone's first role-playing campaign, even if those sessions ended up being more like Slayers than Lodos. It also surprisingly holds up by its own merits. It's not a series that you need to spend hours on dissecting the motives or background stories of each of the characters. You don't really need to invest a lot of time exploring the various diplomatic intricacies of the kingdoms. It's not trying to get you to relate to its one highly overpowered male protagonist with a blank personality surrounded by 32 different supporting female characters with shallow one-note personalities to tie into the gacha model RPG to sell you loot boxes filled with JPEGs. It's just a simple narrative with a fast-paced, serious plot about a group of adventurers adventuring. In a way, you can consider Lodos to be less of your typical Final Fantasy title and more like Mystic Quest. It knows what it is and it's enjoyable in its scope. It's a shame that Lodos never found a similar success in the West, and even its popularity in Japan has waned. However, as you might have noticed, Lodos has been making a bit of a comeback in recent years. 2018 saw the 30th birthday of the series, leading to a release of a new edition of the Sword World RPG, which I have. Ryo Mizuno had created a new novel series based 100 years after the original events, seeing the return of Deedlit, which explains the otherwise surprising existence of Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth. There's even going to be a compilation release of all the old game titles. It's difficult to say whether this newfound resurgence of the series is going to entice a new generation to visit the Accursed Isle, and it's even less likely that it'll find its way to our shores, but it is a good time to be a Lodos fan. If this is the first time you've heard about the record of Lodos, I would highly recommend you checking it out. I admit I'm a bit biased. Lodos has remained one of my favorite series for a long time, and admittedly, a lot of that is for nostalgic reasons. It harkens back to an era where media didn't have to be groundbreaking or novel, when there wasn't a ton of pressure to give the audience something they never experienced before. But instead, it's reminiscent of a handful of friends gathered around a table, running through the same D&D module they played several times already. It's familiar, almost comforting. Nostalgia is one of those things that you can't impart on anyone else. Ultimately, it's about being in a place and time where something resonates with you so deeply that you can hear its song no matter how distant you come from it. But the beauty of songs is that its lyrics will resonate to those who seek it the most. It's about an experience. And as always, this is Soberdorf reminding you that you should really read The Lady of Ferris. I mean, seriously, it is so good. Floss is such a badass and so dumb and making up lyrics because YouTube is so dumb. It won't let me monetize this video because of the song. I can't even use music because they copyrighted the melody. This is so dumb. YouTube. You better fix your copyright ID. There's no reason I should have to do this. It's time to thank the patrons to support the show. You're awesome. If you want, you can like and sub. And maybe hit that bell too. But hopefully for my videos, because my singing is kind of bad.
That was amazing. That was fucking awesome.
This is Soberdorf reminding me of getting Spirit Spells character.
Sweet, what the fuck was he talking about with, like, lady what?
I can't. It harkens back to an era where media didn't have to be groundbreaking or novel, when there wasn't a ton of pressure to give the audience something they never experienced before. But instead, it's reminiscent of a handful of friends gathered around a table, running through the same D&D module they played several times already. It's familiar, almost comforting. Nostalgia is one of those things that you can't impart on anyone else. Ultimately, it's about being in a place and time where something resonates with you so deeply that you can hear its song no matter how distant you come from it. But the beauty of songs is that its lyrics will resonate to those who seek it the most. It's about an experience. And as always, this is Soberdorf reminding you that you should really read The Lady of Ferris. I mean, seriously, it is so good. Plus, it's such a badass and so dumb and like...
The Lady of Ferris. That's what he said. The Lady of Ferris. What the fuck? Lotus. Or...
How exactly do you explain a personal experience? When I started writing this script nearly 2 years ago, that was the challenge I faced. I can explain how a game's mechanics and its design can lead to a satisfying game. I can tell you how certain stories can evoke emotional responses. But what I can't explain to you is the importance of a very personal experience that can never be replicated. Do I talk about the various journeys, struggles, and triumphs and hope that you can empathize with me? Do I mention the personal anecdotes of me staying up well past my bedtime on a school night, the sound turned down on my TV as I leveled in Valkyrie Dunes, using the auto-translate function to communicate with people living over 6,000 miles away? How exactly do I explain the sensation of what it felt like when I zoned into Juno for the very first time? How exactly do I even explain what that means, let alone what it means to me? I tried for 2 years to put these feelings into words, only to come to the conclusion that I can't. I may know the answers about the gameplay mechanics and narratives, but explaining personal nostalgia is one question I still fear. We're different people with different experiences that by some twist of fate have met on these roads that come so near. The fact that these distant worlds came together is some sort of miracle beyond our realms of understanding. We've been given this moment to share our experiences. So if you'll allow me the privilege, I'd like to sing to you this song. Allow me to tell you about Final Fantasy XI and the world of Vana'diel. Final Fantasy is a series that doesn't need much of an introduction. Since the first game released on December 18th, 1987, it has become Square's most popular series and the 8th best-selling video game franchise of all time. It was a series that started the RPG boom of the late 90s and put Squaresoft firmly in the same ranks as Nintendo, Capcom, and Even beyond Final Fantasy, Squaresoft was the gold standard when it came to role-playing games, with games like Chrono Trigger, Parasite Eve, and Xenogears pushing the boundaries of what you could expect from the genre. So it really wasn't a matter of if Squaresoft would enter the realm of massively multiplayer online role-playing games, but when. That didn't stop it from being a complete surprise to everyone when Final Fantasy XI, Square's first foray into the realm of online gaming, was announced at the Square Millennium Conference in January of 2000. Believe it or not, this was an incredibly divisive issue among fans. MMORPGs were still very new. Ultima Online had only coined the term 3 years earlier, and there was no World of Warcraft to prove that the genre could be a success. Fans were rightfully worried that the traditional story-rich settings and personal narratives could exist in an exclusively multiplayer format, especially considering this was a main numbered entry in Final Fantasy. I distinctly remember message boards filled with comments asking, "Why don't they just call it Final Fantasy Online?" Guess what? They did. It was definitely a departure from the expectations that many fans held for the series. But being different is exactly what the creator of Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi, had in mind. While in Hawaii establishing Square Pictures, yeah, I'm gonna have to talk about that some other time. Sakaguchi was introduced to EverQuest,
Wait,
Sony
what?
Entertainment's entry into MMOs. Sakaguchi realized
Oh,
that if Final
shit.
Fantasy as a series was going to remain relevant, it would have to pioneer its way into this new genre. Hironobu Sakaguchi took the team behind Chrono Cross with producer and longtime friend Hiromichi Tanaka, and they set out to create Squaresoft's first MMO. Development of Final Fantasy XI lasted just over 2.5 years, starting after the American localization of Chrono Cross. Tanaka took over the role of lead developer as Sakaguchi took his traditional role as executive producer. Final Fantasy XI ended up being one of the most ambitious projects that Squaresoft had ever taken. It would be the first console-based MMORPG ever made, and the PlayStation 2 was only just starting to explore its online capabilities. Knowing the game would not survive without a healthy user base, they pulled a page from Sonic Team's Phantasy Star Online and would connect both American and Japanese audiences together. Not only that, but it was also going to connect PlayStation 2 users and PC users via the Play Online service. It was the first game to ever utilize the PlayStation 2 hard drive, and on top of that, it was the first console game to ever have a patch in the form of online updates. Oh, your mileage may vary on that last one. It wasn't without its problems, though. Though the goal was for a simultaneous release for both American and Japanese audiences didn't get it until May 16, 2002. American PCs didn't get it until October 2003, and console gamers didn't see it until March 23, 2004. This was in addition to a very expensive price tag. A personal computer capable of running Final Fantasy XI would cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in 2000s money. Meanwhile, PlayStation 2 owners had to purchase the required hard drive and network adapter that set them back $140. Back then, when you were just a kid saving your $15 a week lunch money, that was expensive. And finally, the
Oh, fuck.
$12.95 monthly subscription service had players hesitant and out of the hands of people who didn't own a credit card, something that persists even to this day. But despite all these concerns, critics were impressed with Final Fantasy XI. It earned MMO of the Year among several other awards. It was there that Final Fantasy XI started on a journey that would see it 5 expansion packs, with the final expansion also being the last PlayStation 2 game released in Japan. That was in 2013, the same year PlayStation 2 ended production. That wasn't enough for this behemoth, because in April 2006, Final Fantasy XI also released on the Xbox 360. Not only becoming that console's first MMO as well, but also the first game to include cross-platform play between 2 competing consoles. Just to reiterate, we have America and Japan, PC and console, Sony and Microsoft playing together, mass hysteria. It wasn't until 14 years later, in March of 2016, that Square Enix announced that they were no longer able to support the console versions of Final Fantasy XI. Yet, as of recording, the PC version of FF11 is still releasing monthly updates and is still able to sustain itself with a fairly healthy subscriber base. Reminder, this is in an era where many MMOs, including the Old Republic and the Elder Scrolls Online, were forced to go to a free-to-play model. And that's almost in spite of Square Enix releasing other MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV and the Japanese exclusive Dragon Quest X. And to put a Yakuto cherry on top of this, Final Fantasy XI is still the most profitable Final Fantasy ever released. And that is including all the released versions of Final Fantasy VII. So, despite Final Fantasy XI never being the most popular MMO, nor does it ever appear on top of the list of best Final Fantasies, the game has a legacy that cannot be denied. Despite Final Fantasy XI's impressive resume, it feels that its very nature meant that many people didn't have a chance to dive into the world of Vana'diel, giving the game a reputation as an obscure relic from a time when everyone was trying to make the next MMO. So if you'll allow me to play the role of a gaming historian, allow me to tell you about the early days of Final Fantasy XI. Vana'diel. This is where it all started. The game greets you with sweeping landscapes and a theme that's more recognizable to me than my own national anthem. The screen alone causes decades of memories to flood in my mind. Where do I even begin? Let's talk about my first memory with Final Fantasy XI. Before you enter the world of Vana'diel, you create your character. Character creation is very limited compared to what you might see in most modern MMOs. You pick between 5 different races and only a handful of models for each race. Admittedly, most of your time is spent seeing people who look exactly the same as you do, making you wonder if Vana'diel had a dark history of eugenics. Then you choose one of 6 different jobs. Fans of the franchise will immediately notice that your starting jobs, Warrior, Monk, Thief, Red Mage, White Mage, and Black Mage, The early era of video games is quite possibly one of the most interesting if we're talking about designs. It was a period of time where the unwritten rules of game design weren't quite written. That analogy fell apart really quick. What I mean to say is that there was once a time where there were really no proven methods of game design. Originally, games were often based around one singular mechanic with one very obvious objective. Back then, game design was more about programming controller movements and hitboxes, or getting as much use out of your limited hardware as possible. Not to discount the effort that took to design a game back then, but most designers didn't have to worry about teaching the player through difficulty curves or level design, because there really wasn't any need to. But as technology improved, games often became bigger and more complex, and game design started to take the form as we know it today. However, these developers were the pioneers of what would be the Wild West of game design. That's not to say it was lawless or chaotic, but there wasn't a practice methodology to make your game fun and intuitive. There wasn't a class that you could attend to teach you how to incrementally offer rewards to players. There wasn't a website that gave you insight to developers' ideas and mindsets. And there certainly wasn't videos made by awesome people talking about game design that you could subscribe to for more great content. While this lack of familiarity led to some questionable design choices, it also led to some of the most interesting designs as well. I mean, even Nintendo wasn't afraid to completely flip the script for the sake of figuring out what works. The original Legend of Zelda was an overhead action-adventure game that focused on exploration and experimentation. The sequel, a side-scrolling action RPG with a heavy focus on combat. Why? Well, because they could. This led to the NES having games such as tarot card simulators and point-and-click RPGs about vegetables. Games developed during this era would end up defining mechanics, series, and even genres for decades, and will be remembered as some of the most influential games of all time. The others made James roll for a lot of money. However, as we discussed before on this channel, a game's success and failure aren't always indicative of its quality. As crazy as it is to imagine, we could have lived.
Hey Priya, what's up, baby? Let me pause the video. How's it? Good morning, Pumpkin. How's it going, baby? Here, let me type. Here, let me heal myself real quick. Let me load the chat on here. I was gonna give you a heart. Let me do this. How's it going, honey pie? And is the mic, or is the microphone too loud? Let me turn it down just a little bit, because you can hear a lot of clicks. Well, you're about to see me level, honey pie. You're about to see me level. Here, I'll put the video back on.
Ball Quest 13's board layout being entirely too linear, how the bumper juggle mechanic was just too boring to be interesting, and how Jaleco hasn't been the same since they merged with Sunsoft. That is, if somehow Pinball Quest gained more traction than Final Fantasy. It's only been recently that people are discovering games decades.
Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about what makes World of Warcraft, and by extent other MMOs, so ridiculously addictive. You've probably heard the phrase, you either play WoW once and then never again, or for the rest of your life, and it couldn't be more true. You may be sitting there, sitting on your high horse, saying, I have played WoW for 10 years, and I'm never going back, I've quit for good. But we both know you'll be back at some point. We always end up coming back to play WoW. I probably quit the game personally about 10 times since I started playing it 16 years ago. There have been many strange news reports of children getting so addicted they play 16 hours a day and it ruins their social lives and their schoolwork. husbands neglecting their families because they play
Shut up.
each and every point of this video. So first of all, let's talk about progression. So World of Warcraft is a game where you can progress your character to become more and more powerful the more you play the game. You grind dungeons for gear or badges, you grind reputations for gear, and eventually you do raiding. And each and every gear piece you obtain, you see the performance improve, whether that's on the DPS or healing meters, or you can better survive tanking a boss. And it obviously feels good to go from 0 to hero, to being equipped in crappy ragged greens, to being fully decked out in epic gear. You begin hitting like a noodle, and put the time into your character and come out hitting like a truck. And it takes time to progress your character, and this is what keeps you playing the game for hours and hours. The game is designed so that you have a lot of activities to do to keep progressing your character, even if those activities are fairly boring and repetitive. And the sense that you can get to show off your progression to other players in the online thriving world of Warcraft, it increases your motivation towards playing your character. Because compare that to playing Skyrim, where you would have to invite your friend round to your house to show off the progression of your character, whereas in World of Warcraft, you can flex in Shatteran, Dalaran, or whatever the new capital city is in Shadowlands. You can do it to your guild, you can do it on websites like Warcraft Logs and everything like that. Secondly, there's investment. The more you progress your character, the more you fall into the trap of investment. I've spent so much time on my character, I can't just quit the game, otherwise that progression feels waste. Compare this to a single player adventure game like Tomb Raider or Uncharted. It's a fairly linear story-based game where you can't really progress your character to become more powerful or anything like that. When you've completed the game, you're done. That's it, it's over. It's a pump and dump experience. You play it for about 13 hours and you move on to the next game. There's no investment, so you can stop playing the game and move on to the next one. But World of Warcraft simply just isn't like that. It keeps releasing new content to keep you busy. Once you're finished decking your character out in epics, a new raid comes out with new, better epics, and the cycle goes round and round and round. Investment isn't just purely character power either, it's also cosmetic, especially in retail where you can find vast amounts of mounts, pets, and transmog items. Once you've gone through the effort of farming those mounts, killing LR on 10 characters every week for 2 years for example, and after all of that effort you get the mount, then it can be almost impossible to feel the urge to quit the game because you spent so much time trying to get certain items in the game. Unless you end up in severe credit card debt and sell your account for a truckload. Now the third element is gated content. Now what do I mean by this? So when you boot a single player RPG game like Skyrim, you can just sit there and complete all of the content in the game as long as you just put the hours in. Once you put the hours in, you can then move on to the next game. It doesn't quite work like that in World of Warcraft and other MMOs. You can't just go from point A to point B whenever you want. The content is gated in a number of ways. Firstly, you can't just complete the content on your own. You have to find a raid group or several other players. In Classic, this is 10 to 25 man raid group, or on retail it's 15 or more. Normally you can't just do this straight away. You have to recruit members to your guild, you have to find a guild and join the guild. And it also relies on the skill of your raid leader and other players in the raid group to actually be able to complete other bosses in the raid. You can't just get to a boss like on a game like Elden Ring and keep attempting it over and over and over again as many times as you want, because in a realistic raiding environment, not everyone can just grind a boss for about 10 hours until it's finally defeated and people have to go to sleep. People at work in the morning and things like that. And then on top of all that, you can only do the raid once per week. Imagine if there was no raid lockdown and you could just farm the same raid over and over again. You could easily get your character fully geared within a few days, but instead it only takes about 2 months, depending on your luck. This means you have to keep logging in a couple times a week to do those raids to keep your character progressed. It's a slow process, and MMOs are designed like this to keep you playing and to put players on a fairly even playing field so that people can't jump ahead in player power just because they have more time to play the game. The point is, you are physically prevented from essentially completing the game. I mean, technically completing the game anyway, if we're going to classify completing the game as getting all of your best in slot gear. And this is prevented by systems that are in place within the game to stop you from actually accessing the content, and this means the process of progression in the game is hugely staggered and slowed down. Plus, the game is technically a never-ending game as long as Blizzard doesn't get shut down or something. Content for retail and Classic is going to continuously keep on releasing, and we all kind of know that. We know that the game is going to have more content soon, so we may as well carry on playing it. There will always
Ooh,
be
level
a new
60.
event around the corner, and even possibly a new expansion. You normally don't get this with other games. They normally release DLC over about a year, maybe 6 months, then they just stop, that's it. Which I've never understood personally. Why stop releasing DLC for, DLC content for a single player RPG or any other type of game, unless you're working on a new installment of that game? Why didn't Skyrim continue to get more DLC? They definitely have been working on a new Elder Scrolls 6, but I guess just constantly re-releasing the game over and over again is more profitable. But anyway, that is definitely a tangent. Let's get back to World of Warcraft. Moving on to our last point, and that's obviously, we wouldn't play this game if it wasn't fun. There's a number of different things that you can do in World of Warcraft: raids, dungeons, arenas, RPGs, or just collecting mounts and pets, and I guess pet battles. And different people find different elements of the game fun, and now you can also play retail and classic versions of the game, so there's a lot of choice out there. Defeating the last boss of a raid wasn't satisfying, so I was chasing logs and pushing arena raids. Although I definitely think that people will still play WoW even though they don't find it particularly fun. Because of the addictive nature of World of Warcraft, let's try that one again. Because of the addictive nature of World of Warcraft game design and sense of investment they put into the game, it simply prevents you from quitting. WoW really is the most successful and addictive legal drug on the market right now. It kept me playing the game for a good 16 years, even if it was a little on and off. And honestly, every time I just quit retail, I'll probably just go and play on a private server, before Classic WoW came out. But video game addiction, guys, is a very serious issue. You should never be playing so much, but it has a negative impact on any element of your real life: career, family, friends, girlfriend or boyfriend. In 2018, the World Health Organization classified gaming disorder as an official form of addictive behavior. People mocking me for playing too many video games, so I just randomly thought, what, there's a university gym down the road, it's totally free, I might just go. And I thoroughly believe if I didn't get the gym buzz, I would still be too addicted to video games and probably pretty sad and alone. I'm not saying everyone needs to get their backside in the gym, it's not a big cure-all, though it kind of is. Exercise is always definitely a very positive thing to do in your life, but I think it's important to have other things going on in your life than World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft does not in any way contribute anything to your life. It's an escapist pastime to relax and forget the stress of the working week, and that's how it should be viewed. It's just a bit of fun, and that's how it should remain. When World of Warcraft becomes something more than fun, that's when you're banging.
Well, like, what this guy isn't considering is that Warcraft is some people's jobs, or you know what I mean? Like, he's really just projecting. I mean, that's all anybody's ever doing. They're projecting about what's their reality. But I agree with them about variety, but that's kind of like common sense. All right, let's find another video. Insert this.
Dungeons and Dragons is a game with no ending and no set story. Anything can happen and nobody can ever really win. There is no screen and no menu, and the only thing you can do is roll dice and make weird voices.
Oh yeah, Priya, if you're still there, the guy that made FX Unit Yuki followed me earlier. Yeah, I forgot to tell you, because I wrote a message to him, a comment on one of his posts saying that I love his game and it was the perfect difficulty, and he followed me. And he, like, I think he, like, retweeted me or wrote back or something. What's that level 60 doing here? Well, look at this guy. Take chest. Oh, he's giving me the chest. Thanks. I got it. Here, let's shoot off some fireworks. Funny, level 60 just hanging out. Let me see what you wrote back, honey. 1 second. Let me see what you wrote, honey pie. Yeah, I know. It like made me really happy. I couldn't believe it. But you know, I was thinking about there's so many, well, like in a good way. Oh, sorry, I'm getting tired. It's like 7 o'clock. What was I gonna say? In a good way, I always have so many things I want to do. And I was thinking more about my guild bank idea that I keep telling you about. But I want to play FX Yuki again, but like I wish I had like more motivation. Like I will play it again, but it's like I will admit parts of the game can be frustrating just because you know, I don't know if it's like, if I want to say RNG or it's like the controls. If it had diagonal jumping or whatever, because like you can jump diagonally, but you can't hold diagonal on the directional pad, and it just makes it a little you know, a little frustrating to play sometimes. But I really love that game. Definitely love it, and I just thought it was cool that yeah, that he knows who I am. But I'll definitely, like, I know he's making another one, but then it's also a Game Boy game, so I'm kind of like, a part of me thinks he made a Game Boy games that's easier to produce, not even joking. But who knows, it could be fucking incredible. Who knows, it could even be better, for all we know. I've kind of learned you really don't know until you know. Almost diamond, but came to, but stopped. These the level 21s aren't enough experience. Alright, let's. I just made a joke, baby, to the guild because they were talking about. Most night owls, I get a little naughty. The one guy that he needed a layer invite, so I invited him, and I saw he had a cute night elf, and I said, "Ooh, you got a sexy night elf," and I said, what did I say? My girlfriend is watching the stream, so I can't talk too naughty. And then someone said they were like, what did they say? And then a BPD princess was making the joke about the green lipstick. Green lipstick is hot. I love that joke. Oh, look at these orcs chasing these. Oh, look at this. Baby, look at this. Look at this. Look at all these orcs. Oh my god. Oh my god. Whoa, they're all fucking running. Oh shit, let me come help. Let me come help. Oh, did someone die? Oh god. That is too funny. Oh, they all got the fuck out of there. Oh, that's so entertaining to watch. That happened to me before, remember? That's so funny. Oh my god. Wait, what level was that guy? Level 50? Bet Mage? Oh my god. Level 50 just died. Yikes. Holy hell. Alright, I'm about to level. Let's level. Then we can go base. Because look, my bags are fucking full. Ooh, shadow resistance ring? Nah, I don't need that. But I'll sell it. It'll sell at a high price. I have so much shit to sell. Oh, I can't even talk. I have so much shit to sell.
I can't do that yet.
Jeez, level 50. Oh, and also, baby, what was I gonna say? Yep, we were talking about earlier how long it take, or like, yeah, sorry, my brain was going in so many places. Like Pragma was saying, how long do you guys think it took me in game time to get to level 60? And we were all guessing, and Pragma said 29 days in game time. And then I checked mine and it said I've played 4 days just already with Booyah. That's oh my god, that means like, that's almost 100 hours. Holy shit. Alright, we're about to ding, we're about to ding. Get ready, baby. Oh. Heal. Heal. No. This. Ooh, the next one, baby, the next one. The next one. Oh, it's gonna be this motherfucker. Oh. Pull his ass down here. Do this. No, another one. Now let's get this bitch and level up. There it is. Boom, bitch. Let's fucking go. Ding. Alright, let's base. We got fucking sell. Ooh, I got all types of Gratzes. Look at all the Gratzes I got. Fuck yeah. Let's go sell. Damn, I just straight flat out grinded that out. I just grinded that out. You got a buff. And tomorrow I'm gonna release the new Warcraft song that I made. I gotta get footage of a peon though. Ooh, that's a good spot to stand at. That's a really good spot to stand at. Ooh, I like whatever that fucking item is. It's cool how it glows. Level 60, huh?
browsing my wares, or is there something specific I can help you find today?
I don't even know where this quest is. I'm just gonna get rid of it. 13 silver this ring sells for. Fuck yeah. Damn, that was pretty good. Boar ribs.
See you
Is this
around.
quest in here? I hate doing quests. I think the quests are fucking dumb. I'll say yes.
Best deals in all of Stormwind, my friend. Won't find any better. Now, what can I help you with?
Okay.
Safe travel.
Well met.
Leroy Jenkins. Level 16 no Warlock. Oh yeah, I gotta do this. Where do I want to put it? Reduce energy cost of your shred ability. Cause you to charge an enemy. Really? Requires 3 points in sharpened claw. Yeah, I think I gotta put it in a sharpened claw. Ooh. I'm also getting hungry. I didn't really eat dinner. What else did I have to do? Yeah, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get a snack. Oof. Let me use the restroom too. Be right back. Making my way back to Azeroth. Okay. Whew. I'm gonna turn some lights off. Alright, let's eat a little dinner. Oh boy. Let me eat real quick. Let me just eat. Almost ready. Oh. All right, let me clean up a bit. I'm finishing in this chili. Brush my teeth. Wash my hands. Hell yeah, I did. Okay, I'm back. Guess who's back? Back again. Davey's back. Tell a friend. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Do 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 do. Ooh, level 13 needs a buff. Level 21 needs a buff. You might need that buff too. And that buff.
These great beasts know paths that you can't find on foot. They'll get you there fast and maybe show you something new at the same time.
Um, it was a kit, looks like. I just hadn't thought of Legos in fucking forever. Today is Lego Day, I guess. Pirate ships. Sanrio Karami. What is Sanrio Karami? Hello Kitty Legos. Fuck yeah. Sleepover at Princess's. So dope. Oh shit. Tomorrow I'm gonna get some Dr. Pep. Fuck yeah, please. Crickets. So hopefully that fixed that. Like self-conscious about. Weed. To dispensary. It was closed today. I was like, fuck, it's Thanksgiving? Stupid stoners. Dr. Pep. Oh my God, another big F. Yeah, or like being self-conscious, like over-analyzing, I'd say I've been doing. Oh, sweet. Next month I get sex because my girlfriend gets here. Okay. I will try that. She from India. Belong to same yoga organization. Nothing to lose, baby. I've been there, friend. Oh my god, this motherfucker's pulling everything. There's no way he lives. No way he lives. Wait, who are they attacking? Did they just kill that bitch? Holy shit.
Don't have enough energy.
Get a video playing.
Really human bickering. It stops towards you. Boom!
It sounds boring and confusing, but I'm here to tell you that this game is so much more than what you think it is. And I am here to tell you why you should give Dungeons and Dragons a shot. Yes, even if you do already own Skyrim. Many of you might know Dungeons and Dragons, or D&D, only from the satanic panic of the 80s. Some of you might know it from Stranger Things, and some of you might even have a friend that is oddly obsessed with Critical Role. For those of you that aren't familiar or need a quick refresher, one of the most succinct ways I've seen people describe Dungeons and Dragons is like the make-believe of our childhood, but with actual rules. D&D is a fantasy role-playing game in which the players create and control their own character. The game is guided by one player called the Dungeon Master, or DM, who serves as the game's storyteller and referee. The Dungeon Master also describes and plays the various inhabitants and monsters of the imagined world, and he frequently describes the settings in which the characters find themselves. Using their different skills, the player characters solve riddles, fight dragons and snake monsters, steal from innocent townsfolk, assassinate kings, and do whatever else they want to do. Over the course of several sessions, the characters level up and become stronger, and their adventures often form an overarching story. Mechanically, the outcomes of the party's actions, as well as any conflicts in the game, are solved by dice rolls in conjunction with the rules of the game. These rules provide a structure and a certain amount of realism, believability, and, ironically, predictability that make it easier for many players to submerge themselves in the adventure. These elements, the rules and the dice, also bind the player's actions, and they are what separates Dungeons & Dragons from playing make-believe. Dungeons & Dragons has been around for some 40 years, and while its popularity has waxed and waned over the years, it never seems to go away. But what is it that makes D&D so durable? And why is it still around when games like Skyrim or The Witcher exist? In my opinion, one thing that really sets D&D apart from other games is the room for limitless creativity. While it may look like the players and the game master are playing against each other, the case is actually quite the opposite. The players and the game master work together to continuously create a world and fill it with tales they spin as they go. If you want to play as an elf sorcerer from a powerful family or a devilish bard that seduces everything they see, that can be done easily. But it is almost just as easy to have an adventure about time-traveling handsome dudes, or adventurous high schoolers, or a spaceship invaded by mysterious alien life forms. Ultimately, anything is possible within the framework of D&D, as long as the player's imagination allows it. While modern video games are incredibly extensive with tight stories and well-written characters, they are still hard-pressed to compete with the absolute freedom of choice that D&D offers. You don't want to kill a goblin but adopt it and teach it magic? Do it! You don't want to follow the main story and open a gentleman's club in a wealthy town instead? Fuck yeah, do it! You want to leave the game world and go to another dimension to battle giant floating extra-dimensional whales? Hey, as long as your DM is on board, nobody is stopping you. Another thing to keep in mind is the storytelling. Dungeons & Dragons is often described as a story you tell together with your friends. This is something that makes playing this game feel quite special. It feels as though you and your friends create a whole adventure out of thin air. It is your own, it is tailored to what you want from a story, and it is absolutely unique. Finally, and I believe this aspect of D&D is what makes it truly ageless, this game is an incredibly social one. Playing Dungeons and Dragons requires a group, but don't be fooled into thinking that you need a large and well-established friends group to get started. There are many places online and in real life where you can find a playgroup, sign up and get started within a matter of minutes. But here's the really cool thing. Even if you play with people that you have never met, you're bound to become friends with some of them sooner or later. This game requires social contact and cooperation, and fighting world-ending calamities together, even if they are imaginary, is a great way to forge bonds that may last for a lifetime. Also, hey, there's going to be a game night at my place and we will have some snacks and pretend to be badass adventurers that are trying to kill an all-powerful orc lord, and there might be beer. It's just a really hard pitch to say no to, you know? Now that you've watched this video, you're probably itching to start your own game of D&D. But how and where should you start? Well, all you need to start is a group of players, a set of dice, and an idea for a character. More practically though, it can't harm to become a little acquainted with the idea of playing Dungeons and Dragons before you jump in. Firstly, no dungeon master in this world is going to be upset if you own a copy of the player handbook or have at least taken a look at it. In theory, only one player, the DM, needs to know the rules of the game, but it becomes a lot more playable when all players have at least a rough idea of how this game should work. Another great starting point is to look up actual play Dungeons and Dragons shows. These are shows where people stream or record their actual Dungeons and Dragons games. Some of them add a lot of special effects, while others really are just the undistilled D&D experience, but all of them offer good insight into how this game can be played. For a starting point, I would recommend taking a look at Critical Role, Dimension 20, or Dungeons and Daddies, but there are countless similar shows and podcasts, so there is definitely one that suits your tastes. Shows like these have also played a huge role in the recent resurgence of Dungeons & Dragons, so you would certainly not be the first to be lured into playing D&D this way. Personally, I started playing the game after listening to way too much Critical Role. Now that you've read up on some of the rules, you've found a D&D show that you really like, there's really only
What
one
is he, a
thing left.
mage?
Pick an established world like Faerun or Eberron, or make one up yourself, get a group of friends, convince them to watch this video, or any of the other 5,000 videos on D&D, and start your own adventure. If you don't have friends, or your friends don't want to kill dragons in dungeons for some reason, I recommend the subreddits r/LFG, r/LFG Europe, and r/LFG Premium. The folks on these subreddits are, for the most part, great people that are always willing to hook a new player up with a fun group. As a final note, it's important to remember that there is no single correct way to play this game. Matt Mercer and his friends on Critical Role have one way, the cast of Dimension 20 have a completely different one, and your playstyle will, and should, differentiate from any other group. As long as you and everyone at the table is having a good time, you are always doing it right. Thanks for watching this video. I'd love to hear about your own D&D adventures in the comments, and if you have kinda enjoyed this little introduction, I would really appreciate a subscribe.
Dude, is that the whole video? Alright, let's fuck this guy up. Oh my god, am I gonna die? What the fuck? Oh my god, jeez. That video ended so abruptly. The guy was kind of stupid.
Have your dungeon master tips also changed because you have such a body of work now as a dungeon master and things that you have experienced? Like what gets you most excited to keep on doing this all the time? Because you create your own worlds and you're creating new worlds every time. You have a different dynamic with your players. When I see you for the first game and each character is introduced, it is my favorite joy to see your reaction to those characters and to see everyone else's reaction. And frankly, mine. Like, I'll be completely honest. When Laudna showed up, I was like, yes, this is my show.
Oh my god, I love it.
So
The tips remain, but they've evolved and they've expanded because we've learned from each other. I often see discussions online, whether it be social media or online forums and stuff. People will be like, "I ran a game and we implemented this house rule." You know, this house rule to our game, and I'm like, that's really cool. I never would have thought of that. Maybe I'll consider adding that to my game. We have much more connectivity online, which while it comes with its drawbacks, it comes with the great benefit that we can share these cool things that we thought up or we got to experience in the game and offer other people to take it and implement it themselves. You know, and I've done that a little bit with my game, and other people have enriched my game through their experiences. And also kind of are in the space to share. So. My player tips have changed in the sense that I just learned a lot from other people that have enhanced it. So I would say, if you're looking to really kind of further expand your horizons as far as what can really make for an enjoyable experience, find some positive communities out there in the tabletop space and see what people are doing and creating and sharing about their games, whether it be a really cool encounter they did, about a really cool story beat that they created. People are sharing these wonderful memories from their home games, and it might inspire cool things for you to run in your game, or cool things for you to introduce to your DM and be like, this would be a cool thing for us to implement into our campaign. Or as a player, be like, that's a cool concept. I have a character that I think has been inspired by this story that I want to play really badly. So, you know, I say find positive spaces online because it's the internet.
Yeah.
And step away if it ever gets too negative. But there are some really, really cool things being shared in the community. Trigger inspiration.
What I've seen from you, if I can interject my perspective on like when you're dungeon mastering, you'll give the players some space to tell that story. And sometimes I have seen dungeon masters not give anyone any space. This is the story, we're plowing ahead, you know, thanks for showing up. You've never done that. You give them the space to create these characters and create these moments and have this back and forth. I can see the joy on your face because there's nothing I find more fun than being a dungeon master who has to do nothing.
It's my favorite moment. It's my favorite moment. I see people be like, God, Matt looks so angry. He hasn't been able to say anything for an hour. I'm like, I am living my best life right now. You have no idea what you're talking about. And those moments are absolute bliss for me. And I will say that also comes from having a group that I've been gaming with for a long time. There are some games where if it's a group at the table, leaving that space can be awkward. Sometimes the players need the DM to drive the story a bit and, you know, kind of give the opportunity to getting into a place where they're comfortable enough to begin taking the baton. So I will say giving that space is a wonderful place, but sometimes it's an earned place. It comes with tools. So don't feel like a DM that, you know, you have to always back off. You want to give the players space, you want to entice them, but also don't be an overbearing DM. Feel the story needs to be driven forward all the time. You're not giving them the chance to try. That balance just finding the players at the table. You know, there's no perfect 100% of the time right thing to do. Part of what makes hot games so magical. Engage and play it.
I also like you're not too nice when it comes to rules. Like the rules are the rules. And if someone dies, they die, or if something's dangerous, it's dangerous. We're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I appreciate that because I think that is so important to players. You never get a sense of who you are possibly. That sense of like, nothing can happen to me, I'm a big part of this plot.
Like thing.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. And welcome to the first episode of Campaign 3 of Critical Role, where a bunch of us nerdy-ass voice actors sit around and play Dungeons & Dragons. Wow. After a brief hiatus and some getting to play with some new friends, we are back for Campaign 3, and I'm super excited. Yeah, so hello everyone. Thank you to come join us, all the critters who've been with us for short or long periods of time, and welcome all the new critters that are here for the first time. But before we jump into tonight's episode and kick this campaign off, we do have some announcements to get through. Bear with us. We're gonna get through as fast as possible because it's been a while. But let's begin with our sponsor for tonight, Hit Point Press. Sam.
The first ad of Campaign 3, so buckle up. We got it. Want an adventure where fun is guaranteed and death is very likely? The folks at Hit Point Press have the campaign setting for you. Shut up. Based on the popular YouTube animated series by Dingo Doodles, Fool's Gold Into the Bellowing Wilds is a high-level jungle-themed setting in which you can uncover the mysteries of the world's deadliest jungle. Face new monsters like sheep and ducks and tinker with new alchemy to create over 1 million very questionable potions. It contains heaps of new content, including an adventure module for new and experienced adventurers, plus materials to use in your own campaigns. Check it out at foolsgold5e.com.
Wow.
Wow.
Well done. That's a speed read. Is that it? Is that
Yeah,
the
it's
entire...
for people new to Critical Role. Sometimes I do like wacky, zany ad things for the sponsorship, but tonight, sticking to the script. That's it.
Really?
No, Matt, of course not. I wrote a Broadway musical that the sponsor did not ask for and has never seen before, and I'm gonna perform it for you guys right now.
Oh God, no, what's happening? What's happening? No.
Plus 5 to strength. Agility and spirit. Keep
Honey,
mine.
it's 3 in the morning. Do you
The
still have writer's block?
Yes, damn it. Unless I finish this commercial, I'm never gonna make it, and you'll never respect me.
Oh, can't you just get a job at the factory like the other husbands? What more do you need?
You know what I need. I need the greatest gift of all. I need someone like them. When I'm feeling down in the dumps, life is dishing out its lumps. Our stomach's only full of...
I had mentioned new set, by the way.
Oh, yeah!
Super excited to be here. Wanted to thank all of you for joining us live in our Twitch chat and on YouTube. But if you want to be part of the Twitch chat, you have to go to our official Twitch channel. And that's all I have for that. I got lost in the pace.
So abrupt.
I know. It was like, and that's it. I thought I'd have more. But yeah, thank you for joining us. And Twitch chat, I guess. There you go. Marisha, you have some.
Oh, yes. Hello. I'm Marisha Ray, the creative director of Critical Role. Here with a few FYIs for those who are joining us for the first time. See, now it has context. Yeah. VODs for each episode of Critical Role are available immediately after the broadcast here on Twitch for our channel subscribers, of course, and will be available on YouTube. Mondays at noon.
My favorite Pokemon.
Also, a podcast version of episodes will be available a week after the initial broadcast. So that means you can find this episode as a podcast wherever you enjoy podcasts on Thursday, October the 28th, and then starting in 2022. This is important. We'll take the last Thursday of every month off to give viewers extra time to catch up, Matt extra time to prep and plan, less time to sleep, and then probably actually not do those things and air a bunch of new content instead. And then you can stay up to date on our weekly schedules. Check out our programming posts every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific on critroll.com.
So fantastic.
Ashley Johnson, president of the Critical Role Foundation. Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's apparently.
No, don't make it a thing. Don't make it a thing.
Hello, I'm Ashley Johnson, president of Critical Role Foundation, our 501c3 nonprofit. Woo! I think it's that one. Okay.
Well-oiled machine.
All of us here, we just want to thank everyone who has donated to our Shanti Bobbin campaign. With your help, we are funding a new girls' dormitory and finishing funding for their music program at the Shanti Bobbin School to help build an enriched life for students from India's lowest socioeconomic class. So to learn more, it's amazing. Go check it out. And to learn more about CRF and our mission.
Yeah, no, you're killing
To learn more about CRF and our mission to leave the world better than we found it, check out Critical Role. That'll work.
Yeah, actually. You did it. You did it.
Woo!
Proud of you. Proud of you.
Rod State.
Laura, your turn.
It's me. That's right. Okay. I'm
Better
going to bring you merchandise announcements. Ta-da! Okay, wait. I'll just tell you what they are.
Oh, boy.
First thing up is our Campaign 3 commencement hoodie.
Yeah,
Well,
that's great.
I'll show just the front first.
All right, here's the front because it's
But
straight.
then
They don't have an
the
extra
action,
yet.
action's in the back.
Yeah.
Oh, the mission begins. So yeah,
That's what it
this
says.
is available right now. It's from our artist, Jordan Torrance. She's amazing. It's available in our U.S. and Canada stores.
I thought California. I was like, why is that separate?
California. So yeah, this is available right now. It's just like our other hoodies. It's great. Okay. Next up.
Well,
about 1,000 you guys doing it.
Next up.
Okay. I'm excited about this, but I'm also excited about this. Some of it. It's a dress. It's a hoodie dress.
What? Really cute.
Inspired by Vexolia.
Oh, that's cool. That is so.
It's got thumb holes.
Oh!
Guys, the thumb holes are the best.
Assistant
Anyway, it's by artist Adrian Helton. It's got a Vex patch on the chest.
Nice. That's great.
Okay, sorry. It's got a whole bunch of stuff. It's available at our US, UK, Australia, and Canada stores. Check it out. I'm excited to have it dressed in this store. And, okay, I don't know whether to say this next or the next part next. I'm gonna say this part next. We liked a whole bunch of shit when we were on break, and so I'm gonna run through some of it right now because, like, I didn't get to talk about any of it, and I'm so excited about a lot of it. Okay, first up, let's talk about this shirt. It's a Henry Crabgrass.
Yeah. Look at that, and it goes so well with our Fiordi lounge shorts, which I passed over to Travis to hold up.
Ooh. So soft.
So soft, they're
Put
great.
your
They've
package.
got pockets. It's got pockets.
And your buns on this side.
We also have pet bow ties and handkerchiefs.
You can also wear them yourself.
You can totally wear them yourself, and I do wear them myself. Bow ties? Look how cute. We've also got Chaos Scrunchies.
So you can match your dog?
That's right. Well, these ones have a critter pattern.
Boy, we're a little
and
rusty.
these
Oh, it
ones-
does.
Yeah, I think.
Right. Which I might
Chaos Crew.
save one for me. Probably. And then, we have face masks that came out that are great for Halloween.
Yes, not the birthday.
Not the free face masks. That's all sizes. So cool.
Good sizes.
Is that everything that I had? I think that's everything that I had. There's also more stuff. Check out our shops. And last thing that I'm gonna say, a lot of people have been hitting us on Twitter. I know you guys have wanted a European store for a long time. And I'm glad you know that we're in the works. Let's go. That's pretty great.
That is great.
It's in the works. It's
Long
coming
time.
soon. That's all I got.
Thank you, Laura. All right, with that, I guess it's time. Let's go ahead and jump into tonight's first episode of Critical Role. I would like to welcome you to Marquette. The year is 843 PD, or post-divergence. A landmass once marred by a vengeful god during the Calamity. The staggeringly twisted mountain ranges created in its wake divided the regions that have now developed into a very and beautiful continent. The epicenter of this ancient destruction created the Rumadan Desert, a vast expanse of sand dunes and rocky landmarks that encompasses nearly a third of Marquette. Dotted with oasis townships surrounding the central city of Ank'Harel, known as the Jewel of Hope. Here, the long-living ruler Jamansa Ord and their Hands of Ord keep the peace and prosperity of their people protected. Beyond the Rumadan Desert and sister deserts of the Pendulum Sands to the south lies the gloomed jungles of Aishenador, a shaded territory of treacherous wilderness and careful guard by the historically Orcish erudite society of Eos. Here, many skilled dreamers seek the Marquesian peak of collegiate study and social influence within the political powerhouse of its ruling council, the court of the Land of Death. To the southwest, a towering range of mountain spires climb into the clouds known as the Talland Highlands, where massive shelves and plateaus scattered among the peaks are home to elevated valleys abundant with agriculture and rural life, before reaching to the apex, where the military might of the region is held by the Stratus Throne. Near the center of this continent, the rugged badlands known as the Hellcatch Valley acts as the roadway nexus between the cage-like mountain ranges of Marquette, where numerous independent villages and cities survive among the harsh, dusty canyons and compete for dominance. The history of Marquette is filled with vibrant culture, incredible discoveries, political intrigue, and inter-region warfare that recently culminated 2 decades back in a years-long conflict known as the Apex War between the Stratos Throne and the Court of the Land of Death that left both sides exhausted, expended, and without victory. This truce has continued to this day as both factions continue the slow work to rebuild their societies to their former glory. Our story begins to the northwest of the Hellcatch, within the natural boundaries of the Serpentine Peaks, where the lush jungle valley of the Odiran Wilds hums with life and mystery. Here among the vines and mists that choke the uncarved paths of the rainforest, howling beasts in long dormant shadows are rumored to hide among the lost relics of ancient days. Here, the dense jungle canopy is home to numerous towns along the island sides, where travelers and traders trudge through the dangerous wilds to seek their fortunes. Here, in the central jungle floor rises 5 tower-like mountains that reach for the heavens, where upon their rocky exterior, numerous streets and urban districts have been carved into them to form a singular city connected by bridge and cape. These spires glow with the thousands of lights and lanterns that mark the Odiran Wilds capital city of Drusar, home to the Chande Kora that oversees and controls the larger populace of the region. The spiraling streets bustle with life and chatter beneath the cloud-dappled blue sky, where the innumerable birds fly among the similar riders that keep watch. Here, in Drusar, is where our story begins. I would like Laura and Marisha to remain at the table while the rest of you exit, if you don't mind.
Cool. Oh, my skin is instantly clammy.
Sure. Okay. Have fun. I love you. Don't die. I love you. Okay. What if we die before you get here? Okay, bye.
I gotta get a page.
So, we begin with the rocking sensation of one of the various engineered cable cars making its way, dangling from one of the many cables that connects the 5 different spires of Drusar. As the two of you now ride up within Just the two of you for now. The rest of the interior appears to be empty. But as you coast along the way, it's shifting and rocking. Small windows outside giving you a beautiful view of the jungle mists that are just beginning to slowly return after being burned away by most of the midday sun. You glance at each other as you head and climb towards the airy spire. To that point, Flora, would you like to describe it?
Oh gosh, okay. I'm a young lady with long, light purple hair, a yellow scarf around my neck. I look a little bit, maybe shy, like I'm trying to hide myself from other people. A light blue dress. Just keeping myself tucked back a little bit. Looking mildly uncomfortable as we rattle along. Just kind of hold on to your arm while I'm laughing hard. You feeling okay? A little sick. I never get used to these things. I am a human.
Now, Mersha, if you'd like to describe yourself.
All right. Oh, goodness. Don't fuck this up. You see a also youngish looking woman, not as young as Imogen over here. Long, scraggly, dark hair with a shock of white going through the top of her bangs. She has it pulled back into half a bun with a rock chisel holding it up. Her skin is pale, her eyes are big, a little bulbous with dilated pupils, almost doe-like. Her lips are dark and she's wearing tattered, scraggly clothes, black skirts, and a blood maroon blouse. You can see she's very thin, gaunt, and around her belt, with some tools and odds and ends, is a dead rat with a bird's skull. I made it myself.
Now, you've been here in the city for a short period. As part of this journey, you risked the ascension seeking to see if perhaps there was a way of utilizing their extensive library or research materials yourself. Something you're looking into, but the university itself only keeps its grounds for those who are enrolled there or have approval. So instead, you went over to the Starpoint Conservatory, also. They gave you pretty much the same answer. They said you may submit a formal request, and you left behind. And have heard nothing for 2 weeks. Now, as you climb up higher and higher, check in to see if perhaps there's been movement within the conservatory. You can watch the edge of the air go closer and closer as the shifting of it begins to clatter with sort of the slight imperfections and the metallic cable pulling you forward. Some of the nearby birds that have roosted on the cliffside as you get towards the spire edge itself scatter away.
You think it would get better cables? Because all these people use these things.
Maybe in time. You feeling pretty good about your little essay that you wrote?
No.
I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
They'll give us the time of day this time.
Sure.
Just a little nudge, maybe.
Guess let's find out.
I forget, is the,
Have your connections, then you can utilize them. If not, well, then I can attend.
It's just...
And a bit of a doer.
We've been familiar up until now. Ladna. Imogen.
Yes.
You've been going about the market, gathering things and eggs. You said.
I had to get some eggs.
Anything else you're looking
Donna's
for?
out of eggs. Rubios. Here I got an Earl Grey. It's great. I got a chai. Which probably some like leeks or like I don't know onions to go with it. She said she wanted it for breakfast or something.
All right. Veggies.
Sure.
We got a basket full of fucking food.
Fucking food.
All of the teas.
All right. Feeling confident in what you sought to acquire, you begin to make your way back towards the Vidundava, the windowed wall, where you are currently holed up with the elderly compatriot who is granting you space in the room where her husband is lived.
Shadonna!
Well, you haven't arrived there yet.
Just practice. Shadonna.
There you go.
Was that good? I'm sure
Yeah, that was good. You're
That was good.
Well, she's not gonna be scared of you soon. I know it.
But heading back and walking through the street and making your way towards that destination. The streets are busy as the individuals who are finishing up the work of the day or their various errands for the afternoon are heading back to their the night crew, as some people refer to it, those who either work during the night or definitely play during the night, are beginning to make their way out into the evening air. You hear this strange, you specifically, Imogen, feel it. This odd, low, bassy rumble. And right as you hear it, you see it. This dull blue flash that emerges kind of about 30, 40 feet ahead of you off the side of the street. And you kind of glance over in that space, and you can immediately see what looks to be a cart being pulled by two of these sill goats behind it. As it seems to be this small kind of arcane sphere that emerges from it, flashes for a second. Both of the goats rear up and rush into a charge forward. As they do, the cart seems to dislodge and onto its side, crashing into the street. Boxes scattering across the center of the road. People around, oh God, like looking at each other and checking to make sure it's okay. The boxes hit and break open. As they do, looks like utensils and furniture and bits of decoration scatter onto the ground. And what looks to be a small kitchen knife begins to glide into the air. A table that was turned on its side, the legs bend, and the table seems to be moving of its own accord. A broom suddenly begins to whip up into the air. A sword scattered to the side begins to drift up with no wielder. And it looks to be a rolled up rug that it's still open begins to wrinkle and pulse.
Oh my gosh.
You hear this commotion outside, both of you.
What's that? Is that a party?
Let's find out.
All right.
I'm not even putting my drink down. I'm going straight out.
Okay, you two rush. The three of you had just begun to make your way the outside of the Spire by Fire before you watch this sudden minor cataclysm to this cart occur and these objects beginning to move under their own power in the center of the street.
Do you see any people nearby?
There are many people nearby, and some of them are curious, some of them are like kind of frozen in place, a bit spooked, and some are just I'd like yours.
It's the first half of the first episode. What is happening?
Okay.
What is happening?
How do I do this?
Howdy dowdy do this.
How do I do this?
What? Touching it so close. I'm so close.
Look at the rug!
Whoa. The rug. So awesome. What?
So here, sorry, the mic there. This is the sword that is drifting. This is the knife. This is the rug. This is the table, and this is the broom.
Oh my gosh.
Those are our enemies?
We're fighting
There's something.
objects.
Now,
Wow, 10 slot bag, nice. Alright guys, I'm logging off. I'm gonna get ready for bed in a little bit, start winding down for the night. Was a successful stream, got level 29, gonna get level 30 tomorrow. Have a blessed night everybody. Catch y'all next time. Peace. You get a buff and you get a buff. New song tomorrow. See you later. Bye. I said bye.